One time I attended a baseball game, and between innings, the mascot came out and invited 10 volunteers to compete against one another for a prize. I raised my hand and was called out onto the field. Each participant was given a baseball bat, and we were instructed to place our foreheads on one end of the bat and make sure the other end was touching the ground. We were supposed to quickly spin around 10 times counterclockwise, keeping our foreheads on the bat. After standing back up, the first person to cross a finish line about 10 yards away would win a prize. As you can imagine, spinning around 10 times with your face down causes dizziness. Many of the participants were so disoriented after their 10th spin, they stood up, took one step forward, and fell over. My steps looked very ziggy and very zaggy, but eventually I crossed the finish line first and won a case of Pepsi Cola. I wish it would have been Dr. Pepper. Nonetheless, I was very proud of myself. I was able to move forward after the disorientation. Most jobs and first weeks of school begin with orientation. You're told the rules and how things operate. You're given a map so you can find your way around and maybe even some training. You probably receive a name tag, a locker, an assigned seat, or an office. It's important to know your place and how you fit in with everyone else around you. The last chapters from the book of Job seem to be the opposite of orientation. God has Job place his forehead on a bat, and the world spins round and round. The next thing Job knows, he's lost his secure understanding of how the world works. The maps are no longer correct. The name tag has been ripped off, and what once looked to be up now appears sideways and askew. God disorients Job with words from the whirlwind. Gird up your loins, says God in chapter 38. Translation: tuck in your shirt, we're going for a ride. We thought God might respond to Job and his friends with legal court language. All throughout the book, we were presented with facts, defense, rebuttal, and closing arguments. We were all ready and set to hear the judge's pronouncement. Instead, God essentially says, "No thanks. I'm taking you on a magical mystery roller coaster ride throughout cosmology, meteorology, and zoology. And by the way, just in case you didn't already know it, you are not in control of this process or this story." God uses a sassy, mocking tone of voice and rhetorical questions to uncover our limited and inadequate human perceptions and perspectives. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who laid its cornerstone? Who shut in the sea with doors and said, "Thus far you come and no farther, and here shall your proud waves be stopped"? God sets boundaries. That's good. I like that. Creation abides by order and measurement. Very nice. Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Who has let the wild ass go free? The ostrich's wings flap wildly. Do you give the horse its might? Is it by your wisdom that the vulture soars, its young ones suck up blood, and where the slain are, there it is? Nowhere else in the Bible is such a sustained description of animals. Sure, they're mentioned and referred to, but not like this. Not with close observation of characteristic activity. The wild ass or ox is symbolic in Israel's world. It stands for everything opposed to the world of human order and culture. Ishmael is called a wild ass of a man, and the wild ass is associated with ruined and deserted cities destroyed by God's judgment. The divine speech asks Job and the reader to look at battle, not from the human perspective of victory or punishment, liberation or oppression, but through the eyes of a horse who finds it exhilarating to see a field of slain bodies, not only as human travesty, but as a feast for the vulture and her young. After this first roller coaster ride with the divine, God asks Job for a response. Job refuses. He says, "I am small. I won't speak. I did once before, but not again. Job concedes to God, but has not yet gained deeper understanding. God will try again. Maybe after this second speech, Job will have more to say. The second divine words from the whirlwind sound as ludicrous as the following. Job, my suffering is unjust. I am innocent. Speak to me about fairness. God, hippopotamus, crocodile. Talk about disorienting. This second speech shows us that confrontation with chaos is inescapable. Medieval maps used to label the outer oceans with warnings like, "Here be dragons." God speaks of behemoth and leviathan. Behemoth literally means a plural of majesty, animal par excellence. Some say the behemoth is a description of a hippopotamus. Leviathan, an ancient sea monster, shares many characteristics with the crocodile. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook or press down its tongue with a cord? Will it make a covenant with you to be taken as your servant forever? On earth it has no equal, a creature without fear. If Job cannot confront or control Behemoth or Leviathan, how much less can Job confront or control God? Job has been obsessed with justice as a central value. He has understood the world from a place of secure boundaries, a place of right and wrong, where bad things happen when you do bad things. God shows Job that chaos and wildness are also a part of creation's design. Prior to this roller coaster cosmology tour, Job had experienced a shattering and breakdown of his physical possessions, his family, and his health. But there had been no shattering or breakdown of his belief system or structures for organizing his thoughts and understandings about God. After this second speech from the whirlwind, the scaffolding on which Job had previously understood divinity is blown apart. God will not remake Job's theology for him. Job must do that for himself, as must we. But God does provide resources for the rebuilding of theology. God provides questions about human identity, new ways of perceiving the world, patterns and structures of thought which were different from before. Before this experience, Job had a secondhand, passed down understanding of God. He says, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. We all begin our understanding of God through what others tell and teach us, what we read and take in through the hearing of the ear. However, true understanding comes from experience, from wrestling with God, and going on our own cosmological journey by forging an actual relationship with the divine. At the end of this book, the poetry stops and the prose epilogue picks back up. God chastises the three friends who spoke falsely, and Job's fortune and family are restored twofold. In ancient times, a thief would be required to pay back what they had taken twofold. God gives to Job an amount that a criminal would have to owe. What of the Satan and his wager with Yahweh? That storyline is left up to the imagination. Job decides to give his new daughters an inheritance equal to that of their brothers, which in patriarchal culture was uncommon. Perhaps Job's suffering has made him more sensitive to the plight of the powerless, especially to women. We were warned that even though many turn to the Bible for answers, this book would not provide cut and dry solutions for why bad things happen to good people or explain to us the reason for innocent suffering. We did meet a mythological character named Job who went on a journey of disorientation. He experienced a time of life when his head was down and the world spun round. When he finally stood up, everything that once was secure had been shattered. What once was up was now down, and nothing made sense in the way that it used to. Job confronted chaos, part of divine design. And yet that chaos did not last for forever. Recreation followed. New things were born. Boundaries were redrawn, maps were amended, and most importantly, Job moved forward. Despite disorientation, he put one foot in front of the other, pointed himself toward the finish line, and kept on, no matter how many zigs or how many zags came his way. Job was open to expanding his understanding about God and the world. May we be so brave. Amen.